Good morning. It's Josh with the Partridge Group podcast, and I had the pleasure today of interviewing and speaking with one of our own, one of the finest here. Our business is over here located in Riverton, and I've asked Mayor Trent Staggs to come in here and uh, give us a glimpse of kind of creating a new law enforcement agency over the last year. I guess it's been.
Right, about a year and a half.
About a year and a half, and you know, Mayor, as I've been doing this podcast, it's I want to bring more awareness about mental health, not with just police, but law enforcement, with firefighters, with medical personnel, with all kinds of people within the community, even within your own self and your own mental health, and just begin to try to really normalize some of this stuff. That it's okay to talk about mental health, that it's okay not to be okay, and it's some of these things. And I know that as a new agency, you guys have probably implemented some wellness programs or things within Riverton City. But tell me a little bit about how did it all start? What did we begin to do to even create Riverton City Police?
Yeah, well, it's kind of an interesting. Thanks for having me on too. This
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
great. Any opportunity I have to talk about law enforcement, about mental health, we want to do it. Riverton has taken this on very seriously. We do a couple of events a year in conjunction with Riverton High School and Jordan School District that
Awesome.
signal on mental health. But from a law enforcement perspective, I mean, the most important function that a municipal government can provide,
Yeah.
right, is to take care of and protect the life, liberty, property of an individual. That's what our officers do day in, day out.
Sure.
And so I'm so grateful that we've got our own police department. It has a little bit of a history to it. I'll try to be brief, but I had the pleasure of serving on the Unified Police Department Board back in 2014. I was
Okay.
appointed then after running successfully for city council. And then during that time, just discovered that there were some advantages to having our own police department, and some of that is financial.
Yeah. Sure.
But really, the other part, and to that, we've been able to save our taxpayers almost $5 million now, switching from the county taxing district for law enforcement to our own Riverton law enforcement. And then we took it a step further and self-provided in July of 2019.
Outstanding.
35 sworn officers in Riverton PD. We had 26 officers in precinct under the unified system. So, we've got 9 more officers for
Yeah.
roughly the same cost. But we see our officers that are so vested in our community. Our community loves and appreciates our officers. So that's a little bit about how we got going, and the council has been fantastic and real supportive
That's
of the
wonderful.
move.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is what's been the feedback from some of the community members? Has it been pleasant? Been, hey, I got a ticket today and I still enjoyed that experience, or what?
Well, interestingly enough, yeah, it's been really hardly, if any, negative feedback. I mean, our philosophy or mine as mayor is, look, with respect to DUIs or impaired driving and speeding in school zones, like enforce that is all day long. But we don't intentionally go out and try to, as you know, if you work patrol, it really that's not the focus. Is
Yeah.
to get out there and just catch anybody for going a few miles over the speed limit. But even then, I have to tell you, out of all the hundreds of emails, literally, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of communications, email, phone calls, Facebook messages
Yeah.
from Riverton residents saying we love our police department. I even had someone who was pulled over and said that they had deserved the ticket and was glad
That's great.
that we had our own police department. So even in that instance, which I found pretty interesting,
That's great news.
overwhelmingly positive
Yeah,
feedback.
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I've been able to have some brief conversations with Chief Hudson. I think he's obviously is doing some phenomenal things with the city and with the agency itself.
Agreed.
And I've kind of pinpointed him down a little bit on some wellness. I mean, you know as well as I do, and he does as well, that keeping cops mentally healthy, potentially can create less use of force. It's
Absolutely.
guys not backing into poles. It's being aware that their reports aren't written so well because maybe they're struggling, or just staying on top of wellness in general. What are some things that the city's implemented, or what's Chief Hudson doing and keeping these officers in, well, and some things like that in the agency? What's happening there?
Yeah, no, critically important. So important that we provide. I had chaired the Benefits and Compensation Committee at Unified Police when serving on the board there, and then of course as mayor here in our own city, we pay our officers well. I think first and foremost, that's you have to have that sense of security, knowing that you're paid well and you've got a good set of benefits is, I think, fundamental to being able to do your job well, to represent the city well, and they are engaged. Officers are with so many interactions with the public. So having great benefits and compensation is a big part of I know our philosophy, ideology at Riverton City. Specifically with wellness, our HR department has nutritional and fitness that they provide, because your physical health, I think, is pretty closely tied to mental health. I truly believe that. And so we offer a number of programs for all employees, and our officers included,
that's phenomenal.
For nutritional awareness, coaching, physical fitness, but then with counseling and things that are needed. That is also available. Our HR department can schedule anonymous calls with other third parties and contractors for that type of help. I know our medical benefits also include that type of assistance and counseling. But I've got to tell you, Josh, probably the best thing that we can do in speaking with Chief Hudson and our commanders is to create a culture where, as you talked about, to take away that stigma. It's okay not to be okay. And to have that culture established within our agency. And I think it's something that's it's much more easily done in a force of, say, 35 people than when we left Unified. I mean, with all due respect to some larger agencies, 400 or 500 sworn officers, that gets a little difficult to know and notice, right? Notice if there are changes and patterns, behaviors you can pick up on of your officers, that that as their sergeant or commander, something is a little off and a little different, and to be able to get to it right, as soon as possible is very key.
Which I think you hit on great points. I think wellness isn't just about, hey, John's having a bad day. Officer John's having a bad day today. Go check on him. But I think it's an all-around wellness. It's nutrition. It's finances. It's part of what you mentioned about pay. It's compensation. It's counseling services. It's all of that incorporates wellness. And I'm glad that you, as the mayor of Riverton and over this particular agency, that's the message that's being sent down to the troops, that we will take care of you. We will provide some services. We will give you some therapy. We will give you some nutrition, because, like you said, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have all of that. Do you see officers taking part of that? Are they engaged in these activities that the city is putting out? Are they taking opportunities to be well?
Right. I think so. I do. And that's, as mayor, I try to, at least on a monthly basis, have a lunch appointment with all of our officers. And so we had one just the other week, and it's interesting, some of the conversation that you'll end up having with officers. But I love it, and I love the candid conversations, the feedback, and so the sense that I get is, yes, they understand what is available. They understand the type of culture that Chief Hudson and I are trying to create, and that they have that type of open forum and opportunities to express themselves and to get the any of the resources that we have to make sure that they have them.
And are they aware of these services? I mean, these guys know there's posters in the PDs. There's this is a well talked about thing by not just their command staff, their sergeants, or hey, you know, you don't look so hot today. Let's get you some help. This is an ongoing thing.
Yes, the short answer, I'm told that is the culture again that Chief Hudson is trying to create, and they're aware of some of the services that they have. Maybe we can do a better job at reiterating that, but they're definitely made available.
Good. Well, I know just being, you know, I've been in Riverton now for 4 years. Matter of fact, you were my neighbor for quite some time before
right.
I knew you were there.
That's right.
And just seeing the difference and the happiness in these officers from going from UPD and being able to be involved in starting a new agency, and I see the difference in the officers and their attitudes and how they interact with the community. And I think it was a wise choice. It was a good decision to make, and I'm glad that we're doing what we can to keep them healthy.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, we think it's been a great move, and not just financially. We have to have that side of it too. As a elected official, you want to be a good steward, if you will, of taxpayer money, right, and resources.
Sure.
So it's been a good move there. But I think a win-win-win. I mean, we've been able to bring on more officers in our precinct, pay them more, provide some of these benefits that we're talking about that may not have been available to them at other agencies, and it shows again with the feedback that we've received from the public, overwhelmingly positive. All the interactions. I've had officers tell me they can't pay for a lunch, ever in our community, and
That's
you
awesome.
have people reaching out all the time. So those are the types of stories that I hear, and I'm glad to hear it. But we've got to stay vigilant at this. It's such a tough job.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly demanding and tough job. You've got to be on your A game all the time. I'm not on my A game all the time. So how can we ensure, through, I know officers have helped other officers as they're going through things, or just during the day, if they're kind of having an off day, to be able to have that camaraderie within a department and knowing that other people have your back, that's there. Knowing the community has their back, is really supportive, and the elected officials, I think,
Good.
also you need to have all of those.
Yeah, and I think that I'm glad to hear you mention that there's that camaraderie, there's that peer-to-peer, because that peer-to-peer is powerful. And, that's the whole thing with these peer support groups, and that I've been going around doing trainings with different agencies, helping them develop policies, helping them develop teams, and it's a powerful thing to help officers with wellness, just having these conversations and talking about their own problems, and hey, you don't look well today, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like you said, I worked for South Jordan. I worked for a small agency for many years, and there are benefits of having a smaller agency, that you have that camaraderie with your peer, and you know them very well. You know their kids, you know their spouse, you know when they're not looking the best, and being able to call them out on things like that is definitely more comfortable when you have a smaller, tight-knit group. Mayor, let me ask you, I'm going to dig in on you a little bit in your own personal mental health. You
Sure.
don't, your job isn't easy. My dad, he does the work and grind being city manager and doing some of those things, and you guys definitely don't have an easy job. The stress, the anxiety of dealing with 90 different bosses and different people, and how do you find yourself managing it? How do you keep yourself healthy and well?
Well, it is an interesting job, and we were having this conversation a little bit before we started the podcast, but you've got to come to the realization just right away you're never going to please everybody.
Yeah.
If you, and I know some elected officials that think that they want to make every situation right. It's impossible. We're going to try our best. You run on a set of principles, and that's what I've always done. I've laid out, this is what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so I'm very transparent, or try to be in that way, and then hold myself accountable to that. But yeah, this position as mayor of Riverton is a part-time, or I say paid part-time position.
Yeah.
We still put in a considerable amount of work, as I know a lot of elected officials do.
Sure.
So I've got another day job, or day jobs, and have to wear multiple hats, family life, and balance all of that. And it's it's at times it's a challenge, and I know it's been incredibly difficult during COVID for kids with having to wear masks all day long and maybe not be at school as often as they were, and it's had an impact. I mean, I'll be honest, to the point of it's okay not to be okay. There are days where I struggle, and with my own, with my kids, I know I see the same thing. But again, I go back to mental health. I think for me, and physical health are pretty closely aligned, and the financial health too, as you talked about. And so it's important that I exercise. Yeah, I've noticed a big difference when I don't. So for me, it's very important to maintain a good diet and exercise, and then have those peers that I can talk to. I need to have that. I got to have that outlet and be able to talk about, because as a mayor, and when I'm chairing a council meeting or on a board or doing there is a certain amount of decorum, right? You need to be able to maintain. Sure. I don't want to come across the wrong way. I'm supposed to be representing a good 50,000 people, and I try to be cognizant of that fact, right? It's you want to represent the city, the people that have elected you, as best you possibly can.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's not always easy to talk about our own, inner struggles that we deal with, but in reality, I think we all have mental health concerns, whether it's stressing about something or managing it, or anxiety, or finding, like you said, finding the balance of good workplace, good happy place, good family place. It's important, and I'm glad to hear that that as an elected official you keep yourself in check. That's a priority, because that's the last thing you want. Just like a law enforcement officer, somebody that's not healthy physically or mentally, running a city or doing things like that.
I'd like to, maybe if I can, just comment too on some of the resident volunteer committees we have in our city. It's awesome. One of them is Healthy Riverton.
Oh, wow.
They help out considerably. In the summer of 2018, in my first year as mayor, I ended up bringing a round table together of all of our school principals and our first responders, our law enforcement, and our fire. And we just had a very candid, frank conversation. It was right here at the Old Dome Meeting Hall.
Okay.
And we do it now every summer.
Oh, great.
And I decided to do it in the summer of 2018 because in May of 2018, I think it was, there was this mass shooting in Texas at school. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be the absolute worst nightmare. Are we prepared, number one? What's going on? What are some of the challenges these are our kids? And as much as the city doesn't pay for the schools or set the curriculum, these are still our kids. So what can we do as a city to help support that? And it was very interesting. What came of that was we want more school resource officers. Awesome. And so immediately our city council and I decided to add another school resource officer so every junior high and high school have dedicated SROs. And then the other thing that came out of that is the mental health and the struggle that our kids are going through, the tendencies for self-harm and even suicide. It's a huge concern. And so we now do an event in September and January in conjunction with Riverton High School. One is more geared towards parents. The other one is more for kids. And we bring in speakers and just talk very openly about this. So this is something that we've started just in the last few years in our city. It's an incredibly important topic. Appreciate all the work that you're doing, Partridge Group does.
Well, thanks, Mayor, for coming in today. I tell you, I like I said, this podcast for everybody in the community, a bunch of people. It's not just about police and fire as much as obviously I directed towards that because that's what I did for so long, and now I'm here as a therapist and doing things to create wellness for them. But it's a community thing, and breaking down the stigmas associated with it. It's okay to get some help. It's okay to come see somebody, and I think you've touched on some really key topics. I'm grateful to be a resident here in Riverton. I love Riverton City, and it's just been a pleasure to talk with you and find out what we're doing to continue to create wellness in our community, not just with police and fire, but everybody. And anyway, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.